could be 10-0 and the other 5-5. It's going to be a tight game. It's going to be emotion-filled, and it's going to be hard-hitting. It's always cold. Weather conditions play in. But you can almost always say it's going to be lower scoring than you normally would think it would be, and it's also going to be closer than you think it will be. And that's why I was a little bit shocked at the 20-point line coming out Saturday evening on this game, because I think that's insane. I think that's
20
just
points?
like last year.
Wow.
41 to 40, and down to the last 2-point conversion try in the end. So I think it'll be closer than that. And like I say, we'll talk about it Wednesday, but I don't see this being a 20-point game, even though it appears to be on paper pretty much of a mismatch.
Man, that's where I don't care how much you know about sports. Being a bookie is the place to be, because you can't lose there when you got one group of people figuring out, should I bet this? 20 points. How do you figure out if Ohio State is just 20 points better to begin with, let alone on that day in a rivalry game? Man, that's a sucker bet to me right there. I'm not saying Ohio State's not going to win by 20, but man, you have to be pretty doggone confident to drop that, even though I get where you're coming from looking at how these two teams are coming in. As you mentioned, Ohio State, they had their struggles a bit in the mid part of the game there, but late they knew the score too. With 4 minutes left, they dropped 2 touchdowns on, going, we need to spread this out as much as we can. We can't make it look as close as it was down the stretch. But Michigan, on the other hand, loses 23-16 to a Maryland team that Ohio State just absolutely smacked around earlier in the season with 52 points on the board. So, as you said, not exactly priming up as a team that's getting ready to go out there and lay it all on the line for their team, as much as a team going, yep, we got to play the game. And I likened it earlier to the games the last 15 years between the Browns and the Steelers, and how regardless of how fired up guys like you and I get because we grew up hating the Steelers, kids like my son grow up and go, who cares? The Browns never beat the Steelers. Why is this even an important game? Because, and this is one of those types of seasons, at least outwardly to the fans, I'm still not... I'm not going to get caught up and say the Buckeyes blow them out. I think, like you said, it's a game that will be closer than it should be, regardless of what the final score is.
Yeah, and speaking of crazy betting lines, I don't bet college football, but I was tempted to last week when I saw Indiana plus 34.5, because that was just ridiculous. And there were a lot of raised eyebrows about that line coming into the game. And sure, Indiana's bad, but they were 0-6 in Big Ten play. But it's also a team that went to the SEC East champ Missouri and beat them earlier this year.
We talked about that.
I mean, they're gonna suit up their guys and play the game, and they have some talent. 34.5 seemed ridiculous. Turned out it was ridiculous. They got one of the best running backs in football. He put up 200 yards on the Buckeyes. That hasn't happened in a long time.
Campbell looked good,
and
man.
Yeah, that kid is something.
Or Coleman, Coleman.
Coleman, yeah, Tevin Coleman. He really gets lost in the shuffle of this Big Ten running back race with Melvin Gordon and Amir Abdullah, among others, and Ezekiel Elliott somewhere down the list too. But he's lightning in a bottle when he especially gets in the open field. But still, the Buckeyes did struggle. They once again they kept the opponent in the game with turnovers. And Barrett had his greatest game. All he did was throw 4 TDs, and of course 2 of those TDs were little touch passes to Jalen Marshall, who I thought really had his coming out party Saturday.
Yeah,
really,
that's your
4
guy
touchdowns
too,
the second
man.
half. The kid is just electric, and it's scary to even think about how this team's 2 best offensive players appear to be J.T. Barrett and Jalen Marshall. And they're both freshmen, and that just gives the Buckeye fan a warm feeling inside, because they're both going to have great careers here, and just encouraging to see kids that young, performing that well. And speaking of performing that well, Jerry, Barrett continues to just rack up the numbers, and he tied Drew Brees for the all-time Big Ten record for most touchdowns accounted for in a season, rushing plus passing, at 42 with 3 games to go. So it's hard to believe what he's done. He's going to smash that record. He may hit 50 touchdowns before it's all over. Just incredible season. Of course, he broke the season touchdown passing record as well, 33 now. Broke Troy Smith's record of 30 in 06. So just continues to beat on the record book, and he's just going to put some real distance between him and those guys that used to be the record holders.
And speaking of that, just to top on to what you just said, I just saw this. I thought it's an interesting. It just shows exactly how good J.T. Barrett's been since October 1st. Of every quarterback in college football, their quarterback rating, J.T. Barrett head and shoulders above everybody else since October 1st. In that span, 24 touchdowns, just 3 turnovers that he's responsible for there, and he really has been the best quarterback in football for easily the last 7-8 weeks or so, ever since the little bit of a slow start going. I saw, by the way, you mentioned Marshall. The other day I said, well, we're clearly going to talk about him. I said, that's kind of the same thing you did. I said, a bit of a coming out. I said, I know that's Dan's guy, man. I know he's got to be loving seeing just a little bit out of what this guy can do. And Coleman, too. I just said, because we talked about him being really the one thing you got to worry about with Indiana coming into this, and he showed that. He had that 90-yard dart, boom, put him ahead for a minute, and 228 yards on the ground, as you mentioned before, almost 8.5 yards a carry, 3 touchdowns. He went out there and he tried to put them on their back, and he did a manly job, that's for sure, of keeping them in that game for quite a while.
Yeah, and it's amazing to me sometimes when, even last week with Minnesota, when David Cobb, you look at and they have a tight end that's good, but they're going to be firing at all crucial times as David Cobb, and yet he still ran for 3 touchdowns, had a 30-yard touchdown run on a 3rd and 15. Same thing here with Coleman the other day. I mean, it's almost inexcusable, especially that last touchdown when he's the guy, and he runs 52 yards for a touchdown in the last minute of the game, and there's no excuse for it. Even on the 90-yard run, I don't want to, criticize people by name, number 14, but the linebacking for the Buckeyes was just not up to par. It's hard to believe that they've got the senior, in the middle, and they've got Raekwon McMillan, number 5, the freshman. Every time McMillan comes on the field, he makes an impact. He hits people. He makes tackles, and yet they continue to persist in playing the senior out of respect for his years of contribution to the program or whatever, because he's never been a standout. And it's just time to sit the senior and play the freshman, because it's just obvious that the freshman is a way better football player. And it's baffling to Buckeye fans. It's baffling to all the beat writers that I know that sit there scratching their head wondering why Raekwon McMillan isn't in the game at crucial times. He wasn't in on that 90-yard touchdown run, and it showed. So it's just something that's a head scratcher, and you wonder who's in charge there defensively making the calls, whether it's Fickell or whether it's Chris Ash, or who's to blame for the sharing of time when it seems like the productivity from one guy is way over the productivity of the other. So that's just my little rant for the day on personnel decisions.
Oh, hey, you and I are both big Raekwon McMillan guys, too, and he's really, really shown why. Absolutely. Something else, too, and you know what? I don't do a lot of the hindsight and all of that stuff, and this just is a good problem to have when you got such a versatile offense, is I thought the Buckeyes backed off. They could have fed Ezekiel Elliott more and more. I mean, he had, over 100, almost 110 yards on only 13 carries. He's over 8 yards a carry. He could have easily went carry for carry with Coleman throughout the rest of that game. So, I mean, that's a good thing when you are able to control the pace of the game, and you've got that weapon that you fire, but you only fire as needed, because he had 65 of that on 1 carry. I mean, he clearly could have carried the ball another dozen times if you needed him to.
Yeah, that's true. He's very impressive, and he always hardly ever goes down on the first hit. I actually was a little bit surprised that Indiana defended the run better than anyone, I think, expected them to. They really did kind of plug up the middle, and they stuffed Elliott a few times for 1 to 2 or 3 yard gains, where not too many people have been able to do that this year. So credit them a little bit for being ready for the Buckeye inside running game. They couldn't do much with the outside stretch in the field. Of course, you do both things, and one helps out the other. And you're right, there aren't enough footballs to go around for all the skill position talent that the Buckeyes have. So everybody, individual statistics are obviously going to always be reflecting that so-and-so could have done a whole lot more if he'd been able to touch the ball a few more times. But, I think they've done a pretty good job, and increasingly as the year's gone on, of spreading it around, of being a little bit unpredictable. And, Elliott is a guy that I tell you, Ezekiel Elliott is such a great blocker that you almost want to use him on that more than you do handing him the football, because the guy is just, for a freshman, far as picking up blitzes and as far as downfield blocking and lead blocking for some of those sweep plays and some of the bubble screens. He's just incredible for actually he's a sophomore, but for a kid that young in his career to be that good a blocker, he's just amazing to watch. I like to just zero in on him, especially when I'm watching the game for the second time, and just watch him crunch people because he is really something blocking.
And I'll tell you, as we talk, just to me, I've got to say, as much as, and you know me, I prefer to hand the rock off to a guy at 25, 30. I'm old school, but I like that the Bucks can go so many different ways. I mean, clearly that's what you want in today's versatile high offense world of football anyway, but I like the fact that they can spread them out if you guys want to play that style, or they can customize their game plan and they can go a little ground and pound them and do that. That's a good versatility to have that the Buckeyes teams haven't always had. They haven't always been able to do both well in the same season. So, that's a good thing, and that allows you to match up, especially when you've got the unknown if they keep going here of who you may play later on, teams that aren't on the schedule, if you know what I'm saying, to be able to match up different teams, different strengths and weaknesses, and give yourself a chance to beat anybody. I like that about this offense.
Yeah, you're right, and that's one of the reasons why we have a freshman breaking all the passing records for Ohio State. Is that
all the records, baby.
Ohio State has not traditionally been a team that emphasized the quarterback or the passing game. It's always been a running back centered team from the fullback centered team in the 60s with Ferguson and Otis and Brockington and those guys, all the way up to all the great tailbacks that they've had since that time, Heisman Trophy winners and everything else. So it's been a running back focused program for decades. And Urban Meyer's totally rewritten it and changed everything around. And 46 points a game is what you get out of that. And what you don't have, you've had two successive years of 1,000-yard running backs with Carlos Hyde last year, and Elliott this year went over 1,000 the other day. But you don't have the numbers like Melvin Gordon and Tevin Coleman are having, where it's closer to 2,000 yards now. And those guys may be rewriting some record books this year because they're both in that 2,000 neighborhood, and they could easily break some all-time records. But for Elliott to get over 1,000 in this varied offense is really quite something because he's had to have a high per-carry average to get there.
And he's done that thus far. We'll talk more about the Buckeyes football and, of course, Michigan. We'll preview it Wednesday as we get down into the nitty-gritty before the holiday and all that. Last little thing before I let you go, Dan, as we close in on the bottom of the hour. Just because I just remember us previewing Bucks basketball a little bit, and you going, so they've got this game against Sacred Heart, and I just remember us mentioning that. And the final score reflects the way we talked about that game on the schedule. 106-48 yesterday at the home arena for the Buckeyes as they went to work.
I'm assuming you saw that the freshman D'Angelo Russell had put up 42.
That's where I was going. I thought he put up 32. Was it 32?
Oh, 32, yeah.
32. Yeah, because the record for a freshman is 40.
This record, yeah.
Yeah, the record for a freshman is 40. That was Sullinger. So I knew he had just missed the record. But, yeah, man, incredible game by the freshman. 32 points, 9 boards, 5 dimes. I think he had a steal thrown in there as well, too. Shannon Scott had 16 assists, and they got loose. So you should, as we mentioned, talking about, no offense if you're out there listening, if any of you are graduates of the vaunted Sacred Heart University, please don't take this the wrong way. But clearly what you expect in the virtual homecoming game for the Buckeyes offense there.
Yeah, that's true, and I found out the first things that I ever knew about Sacred Heart University or college, whatever it is that it's in Fairfield, Connecticut, and the favorite son, alumnus of Sacred Heart is Bobby Valentine. So that's another
talking about
thing
the manager.
Putting your little
the manager,
right?
Yeah. Baseball? Yeah, there you go. All
right.
right. So that's their claim to fame.
Yeah, that was it. It's the first thing I know about Sacred Heart. The next thing I learned will be the first thing I know. That's what I found out about Sacred Heart. But anyway, Buckeyes look strong. They've got so many young athletes. Mata's really using his bench a lot, and just guys like Keita Bates-Diop and Jay Sean Tate and Cam Williams, some of these guys coming off the bench, they are really some fine players.